This is Cyberpunk 2077. We're doing something a little bit different today. We're doing a test, a side-by-side, or a versus test, as to say, going from the best of what Xbox has to offer to the worst. So we've got Xbox Series X on the left. We've got Xbox One, the original Xbox One, on the right. So with that, on the left, we have the quality mode playing. So they're both at 30 FPS target-wise. And basically on the left, the Series X, we're getting like a dynamic resolution, a target of 4K, apparently goes up to like 1800 or something like that. It'll dip slightly below that. And then on the right, we've got a like 700p. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of the difference between the two. And at the end of this, we're going to be showing off the performance mode versus the Xbox One mode, because why not? So here is the loading test, which is kind of incredible. And yeah, I'm really doing a lot of things with this video test-wise, so kind of comparisons. So if you do find this kind of interesting, let me know. Feedback's great for this type of thing, because I haven't done this before. Also, liking it would be fantastic, because this actually took quite a bit of time to put together. But yeah, it's kind of hilarious. And this is like literally side by side. So it took about 24 seconds or so for a good amount of distance traveled in regards to the Xbox Series X version on the left there. And the Xbox One version hasn't even really kicked up the loading screen yet. Like, seriously, this is live capture of the actual loading in this one. It is just hilarious. But yeah, I love Cyberpunk, so I was like, this would be a fun kind of comparison to do, just to see. Like, I was morbidly curious to see how the Xbox One version was handling Cyberpunk, so I was like, okay, let's take a look at it. Let's see what the difference is. But I'm like just letting it run, like it's still loading. Still. Isn't that crazy? Like it just popped up with the actual screen to show that it's loading. You might even think it had crashed at that point. Anyways, it takes about 2 minutes and 12 seconds to actually load the the Xbox One version of Cyberpunk. And yeah, I tried my absolute... here's a pause so you can see the crowd density. Just look how different the actual quantity of NPCs is. That's wild. But yeah, I tried my best to kind of line up, again, to the best of my ability, line up a side by side so you could see the same kind of images. Like, it's hard because A, it's an open world, B, it's open world with dynamics to it, so it's different. Look at the crowd density. Holy, that is a huge difference. And you can also notice like the rendering of objects and everything like that, and the shadow work on the right on the Xbox One just isn't nearly as good. And there's going to be a bunch of cool glitches to see throughout. And then C, going back to what I was saying, the performance is so bad on the Xbox One version that you like literally, it's hard to line up because the performance is awful. And I chose to do the 30 FPS marker as a comparison between the two, just so that we could see the difference in resolution. I kept this in because I thought that was funny where I get hit by a car. But, the biggest point is that, having the frame rate the same would try to make it a little bit more similar in, visual look. But look, if you look to the top right there on the building, it didn't even have any of the advertisements up or anything like that. And it's just like such a subpar way to experience what this game has to offer. And on the left is like a weird glitch. I haven't seen that since, but I was literally just flowing through traffic. I don't understand that. That was on the Series X. I haven't had that before, and I haven't had that since. So it was very weird filming in this particular moment. Another really weird thing is my settings all got fixed when I went from Series X to Xbox One and then back to Series X. My settings were all good to go, so I could actually change like performance and all that. This tunnel is hilarious. Okay, first of all, no lighting or anything like that. And these should be about the same time of day, because I didn't save what my progress was, so that I could start at like the same part save-wise. But yeah, just wait till we get to the end of the tunnel here. It's like some weird heavenly gate that you go through. And it's just hilariously weird. But yeah, again, it takes some serious skill to kind of keep these shots aimed up, so I want to give myself a little props for that. And there's a freeze frame just so you can see the difference between kind of how the traffic looks. Like on the Xbox One, I noticed a lot of the road texturing was just like not there, or was loading in super slow. It's just awkward. And then yeah, kind of going to the right here again. Now we're going backwards the other way because I want to show off another spot. But yeah, it's just weird how certain particle effects, certain parts of the world just like they either load in way too slow on Xbox One or they don't show up at all which I think is disappointing. Oh, and this glitch was kind of funny too. It's just like kind of wedged in through the car. I thought it was funny, so I just kind of kept it in there. I was like, yeah, this is humorous, but we're gonna skip ahead here because obviously trying to be a little bit serious here. And I tried to pick different parts of the city that I could show off, you know, some of my favorite like visual standpoints. Like honestly, on Series X, it's a lovely time, and you know, people are saying on the Xbox One, you know, their perspective of, oh, this is just terrible, and I kind of get a little bit more appreciation for folks that were playing it that way and just being like, you know, this isn't how I want to experience it. But yeah, I want to reiterate that Series X is actually like a great way to play the game. So is Stadia. I've played it on there. It'd actually be cool to do a Stadia comparison as well. But yeah, so then we got a stopping sign area here, and then we're going to do a little bit of a fight so you can kind of see the combat fluidity. Again, later on, we're going to show off like a blazing fast, you know, kind of 60 FPS comparison to the Xbox One, which is kind of funny. But yeah, this is just like a combative scene. And again, I tried my best to line these up, but, you know, combat and stuff like that, it's just really hard to do. Especially when, like, the fluidity is, like, tanking on Xbox One. Absolutely tanking. To the point where it's like the screen was, like, just chugging along. And I think the footage even makes it look better than it felt when I was playing. And then on Series X, it's just, like, whipping away, not even having to worry. Although, for me, the 30 FPS is a little bit different because I was so used to the 60 FPS when playing Cyberpunk for the most part, through the performance mode, which again we show off a little bit later. And then we're gonna jump ahead because I died there. Yeah, whatever. And we're walking down the street again, kind of doing the street just so you could see the density of people mostly. And there's just something about like the look of the world. I don't know quite how perfectly describe it, but there's something about how the world looks that just is way more visually appealing on Series X. And like obviously it's a higher resolution, right? But just like the way that certain textures are loading in, the shadows and stuff, it's just a much better time. And I thought this place was good. So this is a smaller area, a little bit off of like the big city, so it should be a little easier on the rendering, right? Also a good little place to pick out a little bit of some differences. And again, with the open world, it's hard to directly compare stuff because the NPCs are kind of like changed every time you go in, so not much you can do there. But just like here, a lot, like half the NPCs are there basically. And we're not even in a busy spot. It's like out of the city. And then I zoomed in here. I don't know why. It's kind of like the shadows and stuff. Yeah, a little bit of thing. You'll get more of that as we go somewhere else. I should have shown off the corner of this place a little bit more though, because I find it quite visually impressive. You know, that little corner area there. And they're coming out here, get another spot where NPCs are chilling out, but these ones are all sitting there. So I was like, okay, that's a neat little comparison spot for a freeze frame. My freeze moments. Yep. And continuing along, just noticing the shadows, not as different, like not the same, kind of weird pop-in and stuff on shadows on both sides, basically. It's weird, like, yeah. Keeping in mind that the Series X version is running the Xbox One X version at this time, and then down the road we're going to get a proper optimization. I hope that's still happening. I assume it is, but yeah. And then here, perfect freeze frame. Look at on the right how the window and the concrete, there's no line or something down the middle. Kind of zoom in there. So a lot of the details kind of don't properly load in until you get closer. That's really interesting. I don't think it's necessarily something you would notice unless you played both versions, but it's just something that stood out to me. It seems to be a lot of the little subtle things loading in on certain objects, particle effects, items in the world, characters being like the crowd density has got to be about half, I think, at least for the difference between the two. So proud if I got this going side by side. Seriously, I'm just patting myself on the back about this. I was like, this is some good editing. Because I was like doing like side to side, I was like looking at the screen back and forth. It was actually hurt the neck a little bit, but yeah, kind of a cool little spot. This is when we're gonna get a little bit cooler because there's some more issues here. But this is like a more dense part of the downtown. Obviously, the Cherry Blossom, I believe it's called, market area. And yeah, just kind of doing a quick tour. You're gonna see this again, but it's gonna be a little bit different after we do this whole tour area. I run into a wall there. But yeah, it's just kind of this really lovely spot. But I had to actually give props to the Xbox One version. Not for performance and everything like that, but the fact that they were actually somehow able to keep the full game in here. Oh yeah, so this is like a freeze frame. So you see there's no crowd loaded out there. And then to the left, yeah, no textures. You walk right in, nobody's in there. Comparison to the left where there's actually like all the crowd already available. But yeah, I wanted to give props to the you know, the Xbox One version, because it actually keeps like the full city in there. It seems like all the geometry in that is actually there too. And then the lady floating here on nothing is present on both of the sides. I left that in because I was just like, why? They couldn't be bothered to fix in a chair? Like, it would take 2 seconds to do that, you know? I don't know. Just seems a bit silly. Anyways, let's continue running along here, skipping ahead, so it's more like batched between the two of them. Yep, fantastic. Walking in here, talking with people. Hello. See, this part, again, I don't know why, it's just synced up strangely between the two of them anyways. But yeah, just kind of the town. I could see the left and then take a look at the right, how it's just kind of behind it. And just like the way the shadows and stuff are, it just feels like a very different sort of world that I think you notice more of the differences when you go and you play the, you know, the Xbox One version after playing the Series X version. Or if you come from Xbox One to Series X, you'll probably be like, whoa! And then this with the motorcycle. Like, what is that? I was just like, huh. That is one weird situation. And then the combat here, which is kind of laggy and stuff. And don't worry, we'll show off the combat with a more insane comparison in just a sec, because we're going to be switching things up here to show off one final little bit of comparison between the versions. So obviously, you know, 1080p, 60 FPS on the left, and on the right, like 700p at 30 FPS. But just like the difference in that fluidity and how you move through the world is just absolutely insane. It's like you're, I don't know how to just, it's so much more lifelike, so much faster, so much quicker. And it just makes the world feel more dynamically alive in comparison to the 30. Like, it's just like, not even 30, right? It's below 30 most of the time. It's just slogging away. And then in there too, you know, just loading perfectly up again. I don't know, I find it so weird that this is like a thing that they, you know, released it like that. I don't know. It's just weird. Definitely a strange situation. And again, just sitting on nothing. Just persistent across all versions of the game. Should take them 2 seconds to throw a chair there. And then zipping ahead, so we can kind of do more of a side-by-side running around. Again, the crowd density and stuff too. Big change. Really, really big change. It would make it feel a lot less lively. Hello. And then we're swapping ahead, running down the road, and notice like the difference in combat here in a sec. It's just wild, right? Like, I don't know. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this look at Cyberpunk, kind of doing comparisons between the two. If you'd like to see, you know, other comparisons, let me know. And of course, you know, thoughts on how this turned out as well. That'd be pretty cool. I thought it was definitely an interesting exercise in comparing games.